Hey guys, Aaron Wilson here at NRG Stadium where the Texans had their first practice of the week. And as expected, CJ Stroud not practicing, still in the NFL concussion protocol, which means Davis Mills on track, and I'm told per sources that he will be QB1 on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, he's coming off of a great fourth quarter, engineering the comeback against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Dramatic win. Davis, Money Mills with the game-winning scramble, touchdown run, 14 yards, some gutsy play by Mills. Tough start, hung in there, played well. So before we get into kind of what this means with Mills, let's kind of go through CJ Stroud. So CJ is still dealing with symptoms, I'm told, including headaches. He previously had sensitivity to light, was wearing sunglasses in some dark rooms. He's returned to work, but he's still dealing with symptoms. So until those symptoms subside, he can't play football. So it's not a matter of, oh, well, let's rest him, or it's safer. Well, yeah, it's safer, but it's not about just that. It's the fact that there's rules, there's procedures, all of those things. So let's kind of go through some of the other ones. Jalen Pitre, they were hoping that he could get back, and he is not back from his concussion. So his concussions turned out to be worse than they thought it would be, and it's kind of going on, it's lingering a bit, so chance that he misses another game. And what that means for nickel, they've promoted Miles Bryant to the 53-man roster. Remember, he played 82% of the defensive snaps. He also played safety when MJ Stewart left the game with a torn quadriceps tendon, ending his season. So he's a big part of the plan in terms of how they replace Jalen Pitre. And then safety, they're looking at combinations. Miles Bryant, Jalen Reed, and Jalen Mills from the practice squad. And per sources, they had a tryout today, and they're signing former Eagles safety Kavon Wallace to the practice squad. Not expecting him to be in the mix for playing time this week, but Kavon Wallace joins the team for depth. They also worked out former Texans draft pick Brandon Hill and Beanie Bishop. So a couple of corners and two safeties. A couple corners, one safety. They went with the safety. That's where they had the depth need. Other guys that didn't practice, Kaimi Fairburn, remember I said this before, that he could miss the game, his second game, because they signed Matthew Wright from the practice squad to the 53-man, and they did that with the knowledge that Fairburn, with his quadriceps injury, his kicking leg, might miss more time. No, I am not worried about Davis Mills. His left elbow injury, he's a full participant. I expect him to be fine and to practice. Denico Autry did not practice per usual because of his knee injury. That's kind of them taking care of a 35-year-old veteran. Harrison Bryant, very sore neck and shoulder. But more good news on the injury front. Cade Stover is back. As I reported he would be, he's back. And I'm told he's going to play on Sunday. They're going to activate him. And so he looks good out there. He's moving really well. And then Dalton Schultz did not practice. They're resting his sore shoulder, but he is expected to play. So they get back Titus Howard on the right side, and I was asked a lot of questions about this in the chat. So Titus Howard's going to play right tackle, and he's going to make it out of this concussion, as I'd said he would. And Ed Ingram, as they'd hoped, is back too. So the right side is back, and so that just leaves left guard, where you're probably going with Jared Patterson. There's some consideration for Juice Scruggs. I think it's going to be Patterson, so we'll see how they go with the line. So the line is all of a sudden healthy. You get back one of your toughest offensive players, pound for pound, in Cade Stover, and then you've got no injury listing for Nick Chubb. So last week, remember, he had a foot injury, and one of the reasons why they started Woody Marks and started to increase the involvement of Woody Marks. We'll get more into the Marks too, but I kind of want to get through this very detailed, very interesting injury report for the Texans. So not worried about Azeez Al-Shire being limited with a knee, or Jake Hansen, the special team standout, with an elbow. Full participation from Braxton Berrios, quadriceps. Christian Harris back from the shin injury, but obviously not a factor in the defensive playing time. Howard was limited with a concussion. Jakob Johnson has not been activated yet, hamstring, and as the aforementioned Davis Mills, left elbow. So that kind of runs it down. And of course, with the Titans, the big injury, Jeffrey Simmons, hamstring, did not play, didn't practice today, but I think he's going to play. So they're 1-8. and the Texans have to get him and Savondre Sweat blocked, and they've got to contain Cam Ward and all those things. But this is a game I'm sure they're going to be favored to win, and that they should win. But easier said than done, right? And Texans definitely not any team that should be getting cocky at this point of the season. So let's circle back to Stroud. So if Stroud, as we expect, we're reporting, does not play in this game, does he play against the Buffalo Bills? That's an interesting question because there is time to clear him before that game to have him practice. So it is on a short week. They could say, well, conventional wisdom, let's stick with the hot hand because I think that Davis is going to go 2-0 in these starts. But remember, your best quarterback, and you can debate me if you want, that's fine. I love the debate. I think that it's a conversation, but CJ Stroud is your quarterback, and I don't see that changing. So some things that, I anticipate, obviously we talked about nickel and safety and them trying to get that fixed and, being shorthanded. And of course, Jalen Pitre is just a real Swiss Army knife for the defense, does a lot of things, can be used as a blitzer, can be used in coverage, having a great season, but concussions are concussions, so you have to miss time. So we're looking basically at Pitre missing the game, Stroud missing the game, and Kaimi Fairbairn missing the game. So that's still, a significant amount of guys. And, it's interesting, some of the conversations we were having today. We talked to Danielle Hunter. You'll see that in my separate video, which is called Texans Sights and Sounds. And so that's a staple of mine that I like to post here during the week, Wednesdays and Thursdays normally. When I get enough interviews, I have enough good practice video. You can see Kate Stover out there running around. You can see Titus Howard and Ingram out there. You can see a few things from the practice, including Davis Mills running and orchestrating the offense. But, Danielle Hunter, and deservedly so, is the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. 3.5 sacks, great pressure rate of 25%, 4 tackles for losses, 7 tackles, and that just ties his career high, the 3.5 sacks. He now has 7.5 sacks, a half more than Will Anderson. So between them, 14.5 sacks with half the season to go. Wow, what great pass rushers. So, as Miko Ryan says, a force, a scary force on the edge. So, you look at Danielle and Matt Burke, the defensive coordinator, was talking about, when I asked about Danielle, he's a little bit underrated as far as setting edges, playing the run, and he doesn't feel like he's gotten enough due for his run stopping, but the surge, the get off, the rush, really consistent and no wasted motion, just constant, relentless pressure, getting after Trevor Lawrence, and one of the big factors in them winning the game, right? Along with Will Anderson Jr., his sack strip, and Sheldon Rankins sealing it with his rumble for the touchdown. And now you got to do things like that again. And they're the top-ranked defense in points, in yards, and deservedly so. They are outstanding. And the defense, they really finished strong after what happened against Denver. So, one of the things that was a factor was Cam Little, the Jaguars' outstanding kicker who's made a 68-yarder, record setter, that you have to defend the entire field because the fact is he can very quickly be in range. So they had to get a stop, and they did. And they did it in a big way. So defense getting it done. And so, that was something to think about. With Sheldon Rankins, that's the kind of play he's capable of making. He's a good athlete, so that's big. We talked a lot with Matt about MJ Stewart and trying to replace him. He was quietly having a very good season as the replacement for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Of course, he was, unlike C.D. Deuce, was playing within the scheme and doing some good things. So now, they've got to figure it out using different configurations, personnel combinations, but I don't think they're going from 82% with Miles Bryant to less. If anything, I think it's going up to about 100%. And he was a playmaker. He was making tackles. He was making some plays. He was fortunate on one where it potentially could have given up a touchdown, but, you make your own luck. And so they're going to have Miles definitely in the mix on this thing. And so, you see the momentum that's building. And after the touchdown to Higgins, the rookie Jaden Higgins, who's also in the Sights and Sounds for an interview, a one-on-one that I did, and they're down 19, they get the touchdown, and then the mindset kind of changes, and they're feeling like, hey, we can close them out. There can be decent field position. They can do some things with their rush and the corners, the coverage working together, especially making big plays like Derek Stingley Jr. undercutting that Austin Trammell route and that one-handed snag. That was great. I mean, he catches the ball, like I said, like a receiver and just applies tight, sticky coverage. And I know that he didn't have a great game against JSN. I do think the left oblique injury he was dealing with has affected him some, but he looked really good. He's off the injury report, so those are all good things. So you look at the kind of what's going on there with the defense, and they want to build off this, off of an incredible finish. And I think when you look at the groove that they're in, including the flow of Danielle Hunter, that's something that you could see more of. These sacks tend to come in bunches. We've seen Danielle make these kind of plays before in flurries. And so right now he's on a hot streak. He's on a heater. So we'll see if he can keep them up. With the Titans, yes, there's some challenges because Cam Ward, unpredictable thrower, can throw it from contorting his body into some different spaces and still buy time and then deliver the football. So the Texans have to be wary of him. Tyjae Spears, the very good running back for the Titans, did not play in the first game. So they've got some guys that are, outstanding. Shamir Dickey and Ilik Ayomanar. So those guys have made some plays. They're pretty good. And if they can get back to 500, the Texans have a puncher's chance of this wild card. So maybe the Jaguars are fading. Maybe the Texans are going to catch them. And then it's anybody's ball game. I don't see them catching the Colts. Sure, they're the top seed, but what about the wild card? They're definitely in the mix for the wild card. That's why it was such a huge difference between 3-6 and 4-5. That changes things. So with Azeez Al-Shire, that came up a little bit. I thought that was an unfair fine. He's appealing, and he's gonna see what happens with that. I think he's gonna have a chance at winning the appeal, but obviously he's a marked man with the officials. So we're going to see how that goes. But, when you get to know him off the field, I know on the field he has a certain persona, but off the field, very caring, very smart, very polished individual, always fun to talk to. So different style of football sometimes than what you might see from him off the field. A little bit misunderstood, I think. I know some say, well, Aaron, that's not how we feel. We think he's a dirty player. I don't think he's a dirty player. I think he's an aggressive player, but I think he's a little different. We talked to Frank Ross. Frank Ross is upset about the punt return they allowed for a touchdown. He said that is not the standard. That is not what needs to happen. They need to work on that. He said, but they can't just say, well, that's not us, because he said that's their tape. That's what they have to own. And I agree with him because it wasn't good. They didn't, make good plays in the open field. They were inconsistent. They weren't sharp. They weren't good enough. And there shouldn't be any excuses. He's not making excuses, but they need to use Jalen Noel more on returns, and they got to get Kaimi Fairburn back. But for now, it's Matt Wright, and so we expect him to kick for another week or two. So we'll see how that goes. No kick return for Sheldon Rankins. They're not going to do that. It was a fun question. So Nick Caley, I kind of saved the best for last. I want to talk about Caley a lot. So Caley, in the way he's coaching Davis Mills, he sees poise, he sees consistency, never too high, never too low, great command, steady. And that's what he's seen from him since he got around him, well before he was here. And yeah, I agree with that. Mills is a steady guy. He has that just unflappable type personality. So going into the fourth quarter, the message from Caley, one play at a time, get a rhythm executing, move the football. And they did. They stayed within themselves. Now with Woody Marks, so he has a touchdown run. I thought that was very good of Caley to go outside and not be stubborn after, the 0 for 3 the week before and all the failure against the Broncos trying to run up the middle. I know they're not the Broncos, but that worked better. Even with having City Sauer for those 9 snaps, and City was bad. I actually talked to City today. It's just say, hey, he says he's going to keep his head up, and it was a tough game for City, former Patriot starter. He hadn't played football in a while, and it looked like it. So with Woody, I think they're going to continue to increase the workload, and they think he was physical. They like what he did, so they'll have more of City Sau. Offensive line, he said he saw toughness, strain, finish. I didn't think it was very good with the guards, even after they made the subs. Instead of having Ed Ingram in there, because he was injured, having G. Scruggs out there, having, Jared Patterson, it just didn't look very good. And, there were some dominant plays from Eric Armstead. He had one of his statistically best games of the last 2 seasons. So now with Davis, what can you do to expand on it? You got to throw to more guys than just Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz. I think there's definitely opportunities for Davis to continue to improve. You see the rapport with Nico Collins, of course. He threw it to him 15 times and 11 times to Schultz. So that's what he's comfortable doing. That's what I think he'll continue to do. And you see some processing, you see some audibling, you see some changing of the plays when he thought it was appropriate. So those are all good things. And now, you look at, the progress of the team. Arion Tertiary is one of the big success stories last few weeks, making a lot of progress, getting a lot better. And talking to Tay, and you'll see his video. Tay has, so not in this video, another video we'll have Tay, but yeah, Tay is someone that has made a lot of progression. So I see the arrow up for him. In terms of the offensive guards, it's not great. That's why they're continuing to experiment. So we'll see if they continue that up. And they did come back from the tough start. So from play calling, I think I see progress from Nick Caley. I see less stubbornness. He's different from Caley. He's willing to change. That helps. And he continues to call the plays and do a good job with that. It's just a matter of what's good enough. But, the way it looks now, I see him back. I see him in the mix. I think that, they're probably on the right track. And he's a young, developing coach. And I don't think they're going to do anything to rush that decision on him. They don't want it to be a job that people are reluctant to take in the future. They want to stick with Caley. So we'll see how that goes. And guys, thanks for watching, like, and subscribe. Of course, there's a replay of last night's live. There's the Sights and Sounds video, and we'll continue to post videos. I'm having fun with it, enjoying it. So please watch, like, and subscribe here at the channel. And of course, I'm on Twitter, Aaron Wilson, and Aaron Wilson _NFL, Twitter/X. I'm on Instagram, Aaron Wilson 7128, and I'm on television at KPRC2 with Randy McElboy, and of course, I'm writing primarily for www.clicktohouston.com, so you can check out all of my content for free there, no subscription necessary. So no paywall, just read me, and you can, of course, watch these videos for free. I ask just one thing, guys. Please, besides watching, liking, and subscribing, actually watch the whole video. That helps me to build the channel and to make this something that's financially helpful for me and my family. It is something I'm enjoying doing a lot, but definitely want to make it lucrative too. So there's some just quick thoughts from me. Of course, guys, I'll be in Nashville, FAA and TSA permitting. Looks like I'm on track for that. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm looking forward to covering this game and heading back to the Music City, where the Texans have had a lot of success. We'll see, can they keep that up? So until next time, guys, look forward to our newest videos. We'll have one on Thursday, we'll have some on Friday, and of course on Saturday. So that's where things stand. And now I'm going to tune out and head home, get some dinner with my wife, and rest up a little bit and get ready to do it again. Guys, thanks so much. Talk soon.